This is the Adidas Adizero Prime X, and folks, this is an illegal running shoe. Let me explain. First of all, we gotta get something straight. This shoe is illegal for World Athletics sanctioned events, and if you're a professional runner and they catch you running in the Prime X, you will be disqualified. And it actually did happen to someone just a couple of weeks ago. The poor fella, he won the marathon. I don't know why he was wearing the shoe because he should know the rules, but he won the marathon and they disqualified him, and now he doesn't get any of the glory, the pride that comes along with winning the marathon because he decided to wear this running shoe. And obviously I'm someone that loves running shoes. As you can tell by my room here, I might have a little bit of a problem. So when I see running shoes that come up with new innovations, trying to push the barrier of running shoe technology, I'm gonna support that. It's the engineer in me, what can I say? But folks, how does this feel to run in? Because that's the biggest question. How does this illegal running shoe feel to run in? But first, we gotta answer, what makes this running shoe illegal? Mr. Prime X, you are under arrest. This is the World Athletics coming in. What makes you illegal is your stack height of 50 millimeters. That's way too thick for us. We don't like them thick things. And another thing is, we've heard that in addition to your carbon energy rods, you have carbon freaking blades. We knew that you had carbon blades and you are banned from any World Athletic event. That's right, us at World Athletics, we say it needs to be less than 40 millimeters of stack height and it can only have one rigid plate, such as the carbon plate running through you. You just have too much going on, you are banned. That aside, let's talk about the specifications in general. So this thing has 3 layers of Lightstrike Pro material. Lightstrike Pro is the equivalent of Nike Zoom X. It's the super foam that Adidas has come up with. In addition to that, it has carbon blades and carbon rods. The carbon energy rods run through the midfoot to the forefoot and gives that shape of the midsole here, the curvature. In addition to the carbon energy rods, they have energy blades that sit just underneath the energy rods, and I don't know, probably add a little bit more rigidity, add a little bit more pop. I'm not quite sure what the purpose of them are, but they put them in there. And also, of course, they have to have a carbon plate of some sort, right? That's right. They have a carbon plate in the heel here, giving that little bit of extra stability, and thank the good Lord that they put a carbon plate in the heel because this thing is not stable. We'll get to that later on. They're also using Stellar Mesh 2.0, which they have in the Adios Pro 2, which I have over here. They also have a sling launch heel, which again, I'm not too sure about. We'll touch on that in the upper section. And like I said, it's 50 millimeters of stack height in the heel, 40 millimeters in the forefoot, just illegal all over for a 10 millimeter drop. And the weight of this thing, honestly, people are saying it's
so heavy. It's so heavy. I can barely lift my legs with the Prime X on.
It's not that heavy. It's really not that heavy. 262 grams or 9.25 ounces. For all this, it's not that heavy. All right, and now with the specs out of the way, I gotta take a little bit of a seat. My legs, they're getting a little tired. Let's talk about the upper. This is Stellar Mesh 2.0, and it's made out of partially recycled polyester, so that's pretty cool. I'm glad that they're doing something for sustainability. Gotta like that. Thank you, Adidas. Thank you from the planet. It's a very thin and flexible material, and it's actually quite breathable as well. I've done a few runs in this shoe, and they've all been quite hot, and my feet haven't gotten that hot, so that's very welcome as well. And I found the same thing on the Stellar Mesh 2.0 in the Adios Pro 2. The exact same. They have some underlays that you can see in blue here, and some overlays with the white Adidas logo, so it gives a little bit more structure to the overall upper. Let's talk about the tongue for a second here. It's very minimal, very thin tongue, but the design of the tongue is very perplexing to me. Frank Lehoulier over on the community section asked if I've had an issue with the tongue coming out from the bottom. And while I haven't had an issue with the tongue coming out from the bottom, I could see how that could be an issue. The way that they've designed it is the tongue is kind of wide at the top and kind of narrows down as you get closer to the toe box, and you can pull that tongue right out. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but I can pull the tongue out and pull it over the upper. So I don't quite understand the design philosophy for the tongue on the Prime X. And it is kind of not the most comfortable tongue. You can't really position it how you want it. So there's a couple of different design flaws that I wish they would correct, and hopefully they'll correct if they make a version 2. Another interesting design decision here is the way that they've done the eyelet chain. So the eyelet chain is like a traditional eyelet chain for 75% of it. But then once they get towards the toe box again, they use green eyelet loop things here, and I don't quite get why they wouldn't just have a normal eyelet chain all the way through. I'd love to hear some designer tell me why they go from a normal eyelet chain down to these loops. It's something that did perplex me, but I don't think that it impacted the lockdown all that much. The lockdown through the forefoot was great, but as we're going to talk about here in a second here, the lockdown in the heel here, no. But we'll talk about that in just one second. All right, so this sling launch heel here, this green section back here, I don't quite understand what they were going for. What Adidas marketing material says is that it provides an excellent lockdown, essentially. It says it's like the creme de la creme lockdown. In my experience, that is not the case. I don't think that the lockdown through the heel here is very good. If anything, that the way they designed this heel is exceptionally bad. The reason being is this is the first shoe in probably, I'm gonna say 2 years, and I've tried a lot of running shoes, almost 2 years. I have not had an issue with rubbing in the ankle collar section of my shoes. But this here, I promise that if I were to have run for another 2 kilometers or so, I would have started to bleed. Honestly, the way that they've designed it, I don't know what I'm gonna do to correct it, because it just really digs into my heel here, and because it's not locked down and I'm moving around a lot in the back here, it's constantly rubbing. And the sling launch heel material is like a hard, coarse plastic, so that is really causing some irritation back there. Gotta figure that out, Adidas. You gotta change this up. Maybe use a different type of material, because that just ain't it. That ain't. Like I said, sizing wise, this thing needs to go a half size down. Please, if you're buying this shoe, get a half size down. I seriously regret getting my normal size because there's so much room in the toe box, and it's too late now for me to exchange it. So too bad for me, but I just want to warn you folks, go a half size. Running in the upper, this thing has been pretty good. I've been able to get a decent lockdown through the forefoot. The breathability is very nice. It feels nice on foot. It doesn't feel super scrunched in the toe box. Well, I don't know how it would, considering it's almost a half size too big. But the big downside is absolutely the back section here, the sling launch heel. You gotta figure something else out back here because, well, I don't really want to bleed when I wear running shoes. Starting to get a little bit spicy in here with this recording material, so I'm going to take this jacket off. So there's no beating around the bush. This midsole is an absolute monster. It has everything thrown at it, every single piece of innovation that Adidas could think of. They just said, hey, how about we take that, we'll put it in the midsole. How about a little bit of this, sprinkle that on the midsole. How about throw that at the midsole? And this is pretty much as innovative and as crazy as you can get with a midsole. The Light Strike Pro foam, like I had mentioned, is very fun to run in. It's very high rebound, very bouncy. It's a very nice sensation underfoot. The best comparison I can give for the Prime X is honestly the Alpha Fly. It's one of those shoes where when you put it on, it almost feels like it has a negative drop because the squishiness in the heel with all that high, thick stack height, it's very squishy. And in the forefoot, you have a lot of rigidity from those carbon energy rods. So it feels like you're kind of squishing in and you kind of have to roll and kind of work to get on that forefoot to get through your stride. At least when you're walking around, when you're running, the sensation totally changes. Another cool thing about this midsole is they have a bunch of sculpting done to it. So I'm not sure what the intent behind the sculpting is. Not sure if it's for like a little bit of extra rebound, kind of like a decoupled groove, or is it just to make the shoe look cool and say, hey, you're not getting scammed. You can see the carbon energy rods, you can see the blades, and we'll just kind of take a little bit of cutout over there just to make the shoe look cool. Not quite sure the intent behind the cutouts. I'm sure it's probably just to save weight, but it's fun to speculate on other cool little things. But I do have an issue with the sculpting of this thing, and I do feel that having that sculpting and the cutouts add to the instability of this thing. I had to be very careful when I was running along to make sure that my foot strike was staying almost perfect. Otherwise, if I were to land kind of outside here, it would feel kind of unstable. If I land outside here, feel a little bit unstable. But if I was landing squarely right down the middle of this shoe, had no issues in terms of instability. It's an exceptionally fun shoe, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I was very scared to run in this shoe. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this is not a shoe to go run easy in. This is not that type of shoe. If you're landing squarely on the heel here, you're gonna have a bad time. But if you pick up the pace a little bit, land more towards that forefoot and toe off area, it's actually quite an enjoyable experience. But when I was landing squarely on the heel here, that was a big no. I did not feel safe. At the time, so that I was running perfect and everything was hunky-dory. I had the gait cycle of Elliot Kipchoge. I was looking really nice out there. This Prime X was so much fun to run in, and it made me just want to go out there and keep on running, because at certain paces that I usually run at in different shoes, my perceived effort was lower. My heart rate was lower. So this thing definitely does make the body feel more fresh. It definitely takes less out of the body to run certain paces in this shoe. But then that brings me on to another question. Why have a 50 millimeter shoe? Why not just stop at the 40 millimeters like you're getting in the Alphafly here? Does it really make that big of a difference to add that extra 10 millimeters in terms of keeping the runner fresh and adding performance? And for me, I do feel that that diminishing return point will come at around 40 millimeters, just because I felt like I couldn't really run fast in the shoe due to the instability of it. I don't think that having a high stack shoe is necessarily going to be very fast. I just can't see that being the case. And that was definitely the case for this. This shoe is going to be great for me to run moderate pace miles at not a super long run, kind of like in that medium to long run is where I'll probably use this shoe. But I don't think that having 50 millimeters of stock height in the midsole here is making a huge difference in terms of making my body feel fresh or in terms of performance. It doesn't really make sense. It could be a bit on the gimmicky side, but like I said earlier, I'm in it for the innovation. The midsole is fun to run in. It's just very unstable if you're not running perfect. And if you're a heel striker or someone that does overpronate, then stay away. This midsole will hurt you. The Continental rubber on this outsole, honestly, I'm not too fussed when it comes to outsoles. And the days that I ran in the shoe, it has been dry and warm. So that hasn't really noticed in terms of any slipping, but there's a good amount of coverage here, so I do think that it will protect the Light Strike Pro, so that's a bonus. Okay, who should buy this shoe? I'm sure that's a question on your mind. Should you go buy this shoe? Let me answer that question. If you're a shoe enthusiast, if you want the latest and greatest innovations in running shoes, go and buy this shoe. You're gonna have a fun time. Me being a running shoe enthusiast, a running addict, I really enjoy this shoe. I love the concept of it. I love that Adidas gave their engineers the freedom to go out and design something that is as innovative as this. I really do appreciate that. If you're someone also that likes very high stack height, very squishy shoes, you don't want to feel any of the road underneath your body, this might be a good shoe. Is it worth the price point of 330 Canadian dollars or 250 US dollars? Honestly, it's not that highly priced when you compare it to other models. The Alphafly, it's 365 Canadian dollars or 275 US dollars. This shoe is cheaper than the Alphafly. So I don't think that for what you're getting and for what the intent behind the shoe is, I don't think that it is overpriced. And people might say, hey, you're crazy, and I'll accept that. I'll accept that no shoe should be this expensive. But in terms of the marketplace today and where this is fitting in the marketplace, it's not that overpriced. That was a roller coaster. There's no denying that the Prime X is a point of contention with the running community. A lot of running purists are saying, why even bother? You're destroying the integrity of the sport. And like I said, can totally respect that point of view. But for me, having the latest and greatest in running shoe innovations, even if it does break rules, I'm there for it and I will support it each and every time. The Prime X, one of the most fun shoes that I've ever really ran in, a sensation like no other shoe that I've ever had on my foot, having so much fun with every run that I've done in this shoe. It's not going to be one of those shoes that I can wear for everything, obviously. Let me know, what is your opinion on the Prime X? Do you think that it should just not have ever been made, and if they make a second one, you're done with Adidas, that's it? I totally get that. Or are you in the camp like me, that you're going to pick it up because you're a running shoe enthusiast, and you just want to try having a little bit of a fun time in a running shoe? Let me know in the comment section down below. Really appreciate you all making it to the end of the video. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button right down below, and I will link to a video all about carbon plated racing shoes right up here. Check it out, and I will see you on the next one.